she saw our reviews and she said, "You guys are the best in South Florida. I want to work with you guys." So it just helps, right? So that's why we have to protect it, right? So Emily, I respectfully disagree. I don't want that. I don't want that 1 star to ever come in. If whatever we can do, I don't want it to happen.
I'm Emily Washkovic, Yelp small business expert, and the host of this podcast, Behind the Review. Today's episode features one of our top 100 local businesses, the Pest Brothers. It is a brother family-owned business, and Jose and Michael Rodriguez sat down to tell me how they got to where they are today. We are back on Behind the Review, and we have a family business today. I'm so excited to have Michael and Jose Rodriguez, the owners of Pest Brothers. Let me throw it over to the two of you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how Pest Brothers became a business.
So for me, this started in high school, where my father was always in the pest control industry as well. He started me into it. When ever since I was in high school, I was door knocking. So it was during the summer, door to door sales, and then from there, I got a full time offer there to work as a termite inspector, and I went to school while I was doing it. So I got my bachelor's degree, I got my master's degree, and then all while still trying to learn the industry. I always looked up to my father a lot, and I just wanted to be doing what he did. From there, I wanted to start the business, and this has been an ongoing thing since I was like 16, and then I think it was 8 years ago where I wanted to go on my own, and this was before he got started with me, and then from there, eventually we teamed up.
Yeah, and you were working for a pretty large brand as you were learning the trade. And then when you decided to go into business, is that the same time that Michael started with you, or did you start on your own first before Michael joined?
I started initially by before I had a different partner, and I was with him first, and then from there, I grew enough so that I always wanted it to be a thing that I did with my family. And when he told me that he shared interest, that he would like to start with me, I was like, well, okay. So then I spoke with my other partner, and I said, I'd like to start get him involved, and then we went from there. We started little by little getting him involved.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah.
So you had the background in the pest control. And then, Michael, tell us a little bit about your background before you joined forces with your brother.
Sure. So born and raised in Miami, with obviously right next to my brother. He was my best friend before I even knew what a best friend was. He would always take me to practice along with my sister, and obviously all of my football practice, I should say. So we always had a tremendous affinity with one another. Ultimately, I was a standout student, standout athlete, and went to Penn, University of Pennsylvania. And my brother and I, while I was walking, to and from classes, we would talk about how the business was doing, the kinds of things that I would be doing when I joined. So it was something that I shouldn't say when, but probably more realistically, if I joined, and ultimately it was something that I always knew could be a tremendous option, right? Because I think when you think about the corporate America, there's a lot of options for someone that goes to a school like the one I went to, but I don't think there's a lot of options where you get to work with your best friend and your biggest cheerleader. So I think for me that was really the most important thing. It could have been it was irrelevant the industry, although there are some aspects to pest control that I think are very attractive. Obviously the recurring revenue piece, the fact that not many people want to do this, right? So I think that creates a bit of not competitive advantage, but a barrier to entry, right? Because who wants to be driving around, spraying chemical, right? It sounds unexciting, but it can be exciting. And I think what makes it exciting for us is the teamwork and our relationship, and also now bringing into the fold our brother-in-law John. I think it's been really, really exciting. And I think that's what's shown through when people are interacting with us, be it on Yelp or wherever, however they find us. They find us well tempered, well mannered, And the reason for it is we're enjoying what we do and who we do it with. I think that's really the basis for it all. And then from there, good things come.
Right. Once I'd say once we all got together and we all said, okay, look, we're stepping into a uh, this isn't necessarily our generation's type of industry, and we see it like our competitors are not millennials. They're not what generation are you?
Gen Z.
Gen Z. They're not us, right? But it's one of those things that we're in it and we're all in the same age group, right? He's 20, you're 26.
26. Yeah.
26. I'm 35. My brother-in-law is what,
32.
32. So we're all young guys, and we're all just going after it. And with service being the utmost importance, and I learned that from the big company that I worked at before. So sometimes I'm a stiffler for how we get jobs done because I know how it's supposed to be done.
Totally. Jose, I'm glad you consider 35 still young, even though your
I want to.
brother way outshines us. We're still young at heart. I know we are.
I gotta say that, right? I have to feel that way.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how your backgrounds complement each other because you kind of have different elements that you bring to the business, but I think together they make you really successful. What do you each kind of bring to the table and think is your specialty?
My brother-in-law came from recruiting in from he was working at a university before, a very very good university, and he was a recruiter. And so that right there, I knew when he was working there, I was like, that's easily translatable to sales. If you could sell someone to go to move from Illinois, from Chicago to Miami, it's pretty easy to say, hey, you have termites in your house, let's treat it. You don't want it to fall apart. Let's take care of it. Michael came from a background of a lot of marketing and a lot of financial at Wharton's, the School of Business. So I felt like that was a really good thing to integrate. And then me, I encompass a little bit of everything because when you're a branch manager in a big organization, that you kind of have to be HR. You kind of have to know a little bit about everything. So I'm trying to use their strengths to kind of complement everything. You know what I'm saying? So I bring in the service aspect where they don't have any experience with that. You know what I mean? So yeah, we all bring something different.
I love that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about marketing. How do you guys generate leads and find new customers? When you were with a big company, I'm sure they were just flowing in, but when you started on your own, how did that look?
With Yelp, I noticed that a lot of folks that I think it was a lot of it was also market awareness because when we would ask for folks, how did you find us? They rarely said Yelp, to be honest, because they didn't really use Yelp as that pathway. So for us, what we thought was okay, if maybe there's a new potential pathway that we can create by generating more reviews and putting more money investing into this platform, because it didn't seem like it was something that a lot of other pest control companies were doing. So around basically February of this year, we said, okay, they had you guys had a free trial. We tried out the free trial, and it was an absolute success. Almost like we flipped a light switch, and just tremendous leads started flowing in. And typically, we had talked about this earlier, Emily. It was from folks that were out of state, folks that were just moving in. So we had made the decision to stop, sending new homeowner letters, right? And I think what happened is Yelp was actually supplanting that because folks, when they move in, maybe folks, I don't know about you, but I don't really read if it's not something that's like a bill or something extremely important, I don't really read it, to be honest. In terms of letters like mail to the house, maybe that's just my generation thing. But I'm thinking, look, we're selling to folks that are me and my brother's age and John's age. So we've got to get with the times. And I think one of the ways to do that was through Yelp, was investing in that new pathway. We're also doing it via social media. We're still growing, right? We're only at 250 followers, but we're trying to be innovative. We're trying to, show our faces, show the things that we do, right? We play golf. We like golf. When football season comes, who knows what we'll do. But yeah, and we also try to be in the community, right? So our local, our high schools, our elementary schools, my alumni base from where I went to school, Jose, we actually haven't done that, but would probably be a good idea to do that as well for
Well,
his MBA. And
well, we did that for example, we did it for my son's school where we were sponsors at the golf tournament for his high school where we get a lot of leads from these events. Like it is what it is, and we advertise wherever we can in those just in those because those are ultimately those are the folks that have fed us when we weren't necessarily getting to Yelp top 100. You know what I'm saying? Um, we appreciate that. We appreciate all those folks that saw what everyone sees now. People saw this already. We're on what year 8 of this, right? Ultimately, we've been Pest Brothers for 2-3 years, but this journey started a long time ago. And there's a lot of folks that we have today that we owe a lot of gratitude for that they stuck with us for a long time.
I love that. And I think it's so awesome that you guys do different types of marketing and advertising because it really does kind of have to be a 360 approach. You can't just focus on one area. And for your types of business, I mean, doing those locally based things are huge because now they know who they're hiring and that just helps with that word of mouth. Tell me a little bit about anything you've noticed about Yelp clients. Do you feel like it's closer to setting the appointment when you get the lead? Like, Michael, can you quantify at all for me what a Yelp lead is like, what the value of the customer is?
Yeah, I would say that whenever we receive a lead on Yelp, my brother talks about it all the time. It's about speed to lead. The more quickly we can reach out, the more quickly we can get to that house, the more quickly we can service it, right? And win that lead. And the thing is, it's important to us not just to win the lead in the moment, but typically with pest control, these are recurring customers, right? These are folks that if you do a good job, they're going to reward you for a long period of time. So for us, it's extremely important. And frankly, we want to continue to double down, in terms of the Yelp leads. I saw on our dashboard, I really enjoy tracking that kind of stuff. That the number of views on our page have increased by 576% over the past 30 days, right? I mean, you talk about market awareness, that's tremendous, right? That's viral, if I've ever seen it, right? So it's been awesome for us. I think obviously Yelp Top 100 was tremendous for us for many reasons. I don't want to kind of give all my content away, but I've actually seen folks they add us to bookmarks, and I've seen more people add us to as a bookmark from a list, right? And that's how I know it's Yelp Top 100 because they basically, I know you guys create a list, right? You can bookmark that list, and I've seen 20, 25 people bookmark our list. Bookmark us because we were on that list. So I think it's just been tremendous for us, and it's been really helpful for organic growth. And we're super excited, and we know we're not doing everything that we can be, right? I mean, just all those touch points with customers, but as we grow hopefully we can continue to add folks and really support the local economy, right? I mean, every time it kind of hit me because Jose's been doing this for 8 years, but for me, hiring folks, we're interviewing folks, and a lot of these folks are from our area, right? They're in our neighborhood. We're creating economic output that's ultimately helping to feed folks in the neighborhood, right? They have kids, they have families, right? And it's really, really rewarding, honestly. That's the part as an owner that's super exciting is I don't just get to work with Jose and my brother-in-law and just everyone on the team, but we're also increasing our footprint to the point where we're helping create jobs, and that's really exciting to me.
Totally. Let's talk a little bit about customer service because I feel like that is so core to your success and just the growth of the business. How important is customer service, and what are your top tips for having good customer service as a home professional?
In our industry, service is everything. What are the expectations that you're there on time, that you say what you say exactly what's going to happen, and what you set the expectation of what customers expect, right? Once you do the service, like, okay, we're treating you for ants. We're going to be there at 1:00. We don't say one. We said like 1 to 2. We'll be there in that time frame, and we're going to treat for ants. Once we treat, it's going to take X amount of time for them to decrease. But before they decrease, they might increase, just because you're kind of messing with their colony, etc. So, but you got to give them the whole spiel because otherwise they're gonna call you saying, "What the heck, man? You just came out here, and like we're having these issues, and we kind of expect it to be gone." But there's a process. You know what I'm saying? That's why folks have a monthly service. We go on, and maybe and we're hoping by the first one, we're hoping they do have a significant decrease, but. But give us another shot by next month. You should have no issues. You know what I'm saying? That is a proper way. I don't believe in having to lie to the customer. It's very, step one, two, three, and you do this enough times, and you kind of know you have all the steps mapped out, and I let my brother know how to speak to customers. I let my brother-in-law. It's training. It's showing them, okay, this is their expectation. Have zero bugs. How can we get there? Show them the map. You know what I'm saying? How we planning on doing it, and just following through on your promises, and that's super important because that's what's going to lead to a 5-star review.
Absolutely. And clear communication sets expectations, right? And a lot of the times, negative reviews are when expectations aren't met or maybe miscommunicated. So you guys really get ahead of that by telling the customer what to expect. And then that doesn't cause them to be confused along the way.
Well, and if I could, I was also going to add that we've had situations where folks, they reach out to us and maybe there was a miscommunication, or look, ultimately we're human, right? We're right now building schedules for six folks, right? And hopefully by next year it's 12, God willing, right? But when you're doing that much work, sometimes you're going to maybe put the wrong address, right? Or sometimes something as simple as that, right? And when that happens, right, we drop the ball. But we're willing to admit it, right? And we're willing to say, hey, we didn't meet the standard, this time around, we'll give a free service. And, sometimes what happened yesterday, I wasn't in the office, but, I don't know if you want to tell the story, but I think it's a really emblematic of us.
When we're doing a service like yesterday, we inputted the customer's information. My technician, for some reason, didn't see it in his schedule. Not really understanding why, whatever. He shows me later on. He's like, I just updated. I don't know why, but it didn't upgrade. It didn't update into my system. It was a system issue, whatever the case. The customer doesn't care about that. Mm-hmm. The customer doesn't care. They were expecting you here between 10 and 12. You did not show up. Where are you? I wasted my day. I was hearing all that at 1:30 when I was in the dealer trying to buy a truck. That our other truck just got broken down, and I was listening. I was like, oh my God. And it's like, you're that's an everyday that happens. So you're running a business and things like that can happen. And so what I told the customers, listen, what can we do to fix this? And I told her straight out, I was like, this was our fault. This is our fault. I want to make it up to you. When will you be home? If you have to go home right now, you have to go. You have to go. I totally get it. When will you be back? We're gonna be back at 6:00 at night. We'll be there. Or do I want to be there at 6:00 at night? Obviously, no. I have kids. But we messed up. We have to make it right.
Yeah, and I think even being able to work through that customer, frustration, and the point you made, they don't care about the details of why it happened. That's so important because I think a lot of businesses, they get stuck in the explanation or why it happened or trying to kind of like get out of it or remove blame. And when you really just take it on and say, this was human error, how can we fix it? That is much better received by the customer because they don't really want the excuses. They just want to know if there's an option to fix it. So that was a great story. I'm glad you shared that as an example. So many of your reviews talk about fast response rate. And I think that's fast response rate when they send a message about a job, but also how quickly you're able to actually get out to the lead. Can you guys just talk a little bit about how you manage such a fast response rate?
When we're building out our schedules, right, we have an idea of which, some of our customers, we already know, hey, Monday and Thursday of every single week, we're going to, a huge hotel chain, right? We know where we got to be from 1 to 4, on that day, right? So we have that for, I would say probably 25% of our monthly recurring revenue is built out in that way, right? So we have a floor, right? Of we don't even need to call them; they don't need to call us. We know, right? So okay, you start with that, and then obviously we have our customers that we need to call and schedule, right? Jose and I do a lot of that, right? To basically call and say, hey, you're due for your schedule, please, whatever the case. And then we've got my brother-in-law and myself, and sometimes Jose that we're kind of, we all have access to the schedule on Google Sheets, and we basically, we all can say, okay, based on what I'm seeing, here's when we'll be able to go to Homestead, right? Tomorrow, right? Or, whichever, pick a town, that's where we'll be, right? So, and sometimes, you might look at Jose, we have Apple car tags on all our vehicles. And actually, he's taking screenshots where we're like all across the state of Florida. It's like, when did this happen? Like you'll send a group, screenshot to. We have a group chat for all of our employees, and it's like, Pest Brothers is taking over, which is super exciting and fun. But all that to say, ultimately, the three of us, me, Jose, and my brother-in-law, we all have access to the schedule. We try to be very, very efficient on. Okay, we get a call, we book it, on our schedule. We put all the information that needs to be put: email, phone number, customer, customer name, and then also the address, right? And then the time range that we gave, right? Onto the schedule, right? We try to, for a new customer, we'll try to put it 10 to 12, a little bit more range, because ultimately that we're introducing ourselves, right? We're saying, hey, we're the Pest Brothers. Here's what we're seeing in your home, right? Because it's not like we're establishing a relationship. So all that to say, we've got three people filling those schedules. We already have the schedule partially built out, and yeah, I mean, I think it's been a pretty good system so far.
I love that. Michael, do you respond to your request to quotes like on your phone just as you're going
Yes,
throughout the day? You
absolutely.
do.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be days where I'm at a customer's house, and we get a lead from Yelp, right? A request to quote. I'll basically, have. I try not to do the canned responses. I know we've spoken about that previously, where we just do copy paste. I don't like doing that, because what happens is you're on the go, and you might mess up the customer's name, or you might say, oh, it's for a termite control, or it actually was a pest control. And ultimately, this first impressions count, right? So I want to sit down and take 30 seconds. What's your name? What's your problem? When can we be out there? It takes 30 seconds. Sometimes it's not the most efficient thing, but that's how you provide good service and a good impression. So yeah, I mean, and I try to respond. Jose also has access to Yelp, so it really helps. Sometimes he'll be up. I'm like, why were you up at 11 o'clock? What were you doing? But it's
no,
like, okay.
he goes to sleep earlier than I do,
Yeah.
and because I have a toddler and a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, right? So sometimes I have my 1-year-old likes to wake up at 11:30 night every night. I don't know why, it just always happens, and so I always look at it. I'm like, let me check everything while I'm up, and sometimes he already gone to bed at nine, and I'm like, all right, whatever. Let me just respond to a few people and let's see what happens.
I
Because
love that.
worst case, whatever. If somebody later on, if they respond at 3 in the morning, all right, whatever.
Yeah, to be honest, the first app I check when I wake up is Yelp, right? Because I want to make sure that our time to, the time it takes for us to respond to a quote is as minimal as possible, right? To me, that's indicative of service, of professionalism. And I've also noticed that when you look, when a customer looks up Pest Control Miami, there's actually like a little banner that says fastest response times. I want to be on there, because we're not even paying for that, right? That's just us doing our job really well, right? So I want to be on that. I want to be on the paid ad, and if they happen to, with our reviews, right? I want to just every single way that I can optimize that Yelp search, I want to be able to do that.
Okay, let's talk about reputation management. I feel like for some business owners, it's just tough, right? Like a critical review can be really hard just to get in general, but for some business owners, it's just a lot to manage. Positive reviews, critical reviews, the whole thing. So do you have any advice for how you handle it or process the different reviews in order to be responsive?
Well, I think, I don't know if it kind of ties in a little bit with my earlier story, right? Where you're gonna that at 2 p.m. yesterday, that was gonna be a bad review. It was gonna be a bad review. And then, but we were able to meet the needs before. We haven't. I'm sure I'm gonna say now, we haven't experienced a bad review as of yet. But it doesn't mean that it's not coming. I'm sure it is. Everybody gets it, but we're pretty on top of it right now. So it's one of those things where maybe as we expand, it's possible, where things can fall through the cracks, and you're like, man, I just really don't think I could have done, but we're not there. So like, we I'm I'm sad that I put that out there, but you know,
No, don't be sad about that. First of all, let me just say that's an amazing accomplishment and it's really a credibility to your customer service. But also, as you grow, it is going to happen at some point, right? And maybe you'll respond to it and maybe they'll take it down or things will get resolved. Maybe it'll stay up. But at the end of the day, the busier you get, the more guys you have, the more trucks you have, something's going to happen. And let's be honest, it'll make the page look more credible as you get to that scale. Because can you imagine if you had 100 reviews and none of them have anything critical to say? Like, that also sometimes makes people wonder, like, huh. So at some point it'll happen, but you didn't jinx it. It's just because you're growing. And that's important, you know? Like, you can do an amazing job and you can provide great customer service and solutions for everyone. But some people just aren't going to be as, flexible or responsive sometimes.
So Emily, I was going to say too. I think two things that I think help in terms of reputation management is it's getting ahead of those customer complaints. My brother has the benefit that I don't have of having almost 20 years of wisdom when it comes to pest control, right? Seeing the movie 1,000, 10,000 times and saying, okay, I already know how this is setting up. I see the pieces on the board. Here's how I'm going to navigate this, right? I'm going to make sure that, based on the customer, it just, okay, I'll give you a hypothetical customer, it's a new customer of ours. And they say when we're on the intro call, right, they're talking to me or talking to Jose, oh, we actually just moved from whichever company, and we've actually, haven't had we've changed pest control companies 3 times over the past year, right? When we hear that, I hear me. I don't hear your perspective, but I hear two things. One, they have high standards, which is not a bad thing, but it simply means they have high standards from what I can tell. And number two, we've got to dedicate the requisite amount of time, right? Maybe more time than we would for other folks. We've got to dedicate that time, right? Because Jose has the benefit of seeing the movie play out 10,000 times. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is we answer the phone at all times of. I mean, it could be 5:30. I happen to wake up. I don't know whatever the reason was, and I'm watching the news. Hey, hello, it's Mike Rodriguez, Pest Brothers. How can I help? I don't know. I don't know who it is, right? So that I think that commitment to customer service is super important, right? Because we're protecting that brand with our life because it helps us make sales very easily. Because I was on a walk with my wife. I mentioned this to you, Emily. I was on a walk with my wife on Saturday, and she heard the easiest sale in the history of sales. It was someone from New York. They were taking care of their mom. Their mom had a rat issue. They said, okay, you guys come. I gave her the price. I told her what I think it could be, and then she said, great. I'll be there Tuesday morning. Thanks so much. And and the reason why it was so easy was she mentioned that she saw our reviews and she said, you guys are the best in South Florida. I want to work with you guys. So it just helps, right? So that's why we have to protect it, right? So Emily, I respectfully disagree. I don't want that. I don't want that 1 star to ever come in. If whatever we can do, I don't want it to happen, So, yeah,
Well,
I think that those are the things that help.
but I understand. I understand what you mean. I mean,
Yes.
it happens.
We have 1,500 stops this month, right? I mean, you're servicing 1,500 people. I mean, and not just people, by the way, it's a business, right? So you might, you're interacting with hundreds of thousands of people potentially. It's math, right? That something's going to happen. But I think the systems, our commitment to the service, and Jose having the experience he has, those 3 things help us tremendously with reputation management.
Totally. And even if you do get a critical review, the way you respond to it then also puts it in frame. You know what I mean? Like, you guys have a great reputation. So getting one wouldn't be the end of the world. But I'm also fine with that not happening for a long time.
Now, I will tell you furthermore on that reputation management. It says Pest Brothers, and it started with me and my brother. But it's funny, like I have 2 boys. They are also Pest Brothers. I have my brother-in-law. He's also Pest Brothers. So it's an all-encompassing name where you have to understand what it means behind that, right? So like it means the world to me.
So, what advice would you guys give anyone who's trying to start a pest control business or any home service business?
So 2 things, Emily. The first, I think, is have relevant industry experience, right? bounce around with a couple, different tiers of firms, right? So I first, try the big guys, right? See how they operate, right? See how professional they are, but see maybe some of the ways that you can beat them. Maybe it's on service, maybe it's on price. Who knows, right? So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is try to maybe work in your local market, right? Maybe there's some pest control companies that already operate there. Maybe it could be a good idea to see how they operate, right? See what they do well, what they don't. And then you kind of get a sense for that differentiation of how you're going to enter the market differently, what you're going to emphasize, right? So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is cash flow, right? First off, you've got to save up enough to be, at least for home services, right, to buy a truck, right, to buy the inventory, right? Maybe I can't speak to other, but at least for us, we need to buy our chemicals, right? We got to have a place to store those chemicals, right? So you've got a lot of costs up front that you've got to prepare for, right? And then ultimately, it's going to take some time to build up your book of business, right? So I think it'll help, having that cash, saved will help you make better decisions on how to build your business, right? So that you're not just optimizing for the next dollar, you're optimizing for, okay, what do I want this to look like in 5 years, right? I think that's really, to me, the most, the two important things.
And then I am always looking for, okay, when I first started, it was one of those things where you have to kind of just be looking for the next dollar initially, right? Because I didn't come with a huge influx of cash, so that's why it would be nice if you had that.
Yeah.
But at that point, you have to just understand what got you there, which is great customer service. You're not just another number. That's another way of differentiating yourself from the big dogs. I mean, look, ultimately Yelp helps because you can be as big as you want, but customers are going to give you a 1 or a 5.
Absolutely.
And that's the only thing that I have to compete with in Yelp.
Yeah.
Whereas in other areas you have to. It depends on who pays more, and that's who's going to get to the front of the page. So it's one of those things where I think if you just consider just have consistently good customer service, always be present. So if somebody calls you, you can definitely rectify their issue as soon as you can. That's literally the whole point of being a small business, that you should be able to do that. And you should know, and being able to know the customers' names and stuff like that. That always helps in the process. Because that's a question, right? When you first start, that's the stuff that differentiate you from others.
When I joined and I looked at different ways of avenues of growth, when I looked at Yelp and I looked at Pest Control Miami, I didn't see the big guys, right? And what I thought was interesting about that is they had really, really poor reviews. And I can tell that they didn't care about them, because when you go on Google, they had tremendous reviews, right? So you can tell that they invested a lot of money to curate, to basically remove the bad ones, right? And only keep the good ones. So I thought of Yelp as an equalizer, as a way to say, okay, let's start from zero and let's see, who actually does the best job every single time, right? Because I think a Yelper is more likely to review you, period, regardless of whether you actually did a good job or not, right? So that's a report card, I think for Yelpers, and that's why we love serving them, because we want to do a great job. We want you to review us, right? And I think they appreciate that. So I think build your business on Yelp would be a good idea too.
You're awesome. Okay, so Pest Brothers was on this year's top 100 local businesses list. And for those who don't know, Yelp releases lots of different lists. We have the top 100 restaurants every year, which is a big famous list. And then things like, best pizza or best tacos. But the top 100 local list is really about finding the best local businesses that aren't about food. So home service providers, beauty, fitness. And in each one of our categories, we had 20 businesses recognized and a maximum of 2 per state. So in the services category, there could only be 2 Florida businesses total. And you were one of them, which is a huge accomplishment. And really, it's based on how much activity your Yelp page has had, whether that's views, reviews, how much engagement you guys have done. It's just about being an active page, pretty much, and a page that people are paying attention to. So how has it been since you were named on the list a couple weeks ago?
I don't know if Jose wants to chime in, but I'd be happy to provide some comments. I think first off, whenever someone whenever we get a request for proposal for a huge customer, it's the first thing that we mention, right? Because it's like, hey, we were nationally recognized. I mean, this is a national award, right, of a tremendous brand that is focused on the best service, like, right, like that's the most important thing, right? So that's the first thing that I mentioned. I think it improves our credibility in the pest control industry in the local area, and I think it's also we've also become something that our community's proud of, right? Because when Jose talks to his longtime customers, right, that's been there since the beginning, I think a lot of them are really really happy and proud of him and proud of us now. I was our elementary school, we do the pest control there, and they were I told the accountant, they were super happy and proud for us. So I think we're kind of an emblem for the community, right? Something to be proud of as a community award. So it really is. We really are a local business. We're growing, but hopefully we continue to maintain that local piece, and it's just been tremendous for us. And also, in terms of growing out the team and improving the team, obviously hiring has been much easier for us because we have that designation. Where folks have mentioned it to us, and honestly, that's a way that we kind of differentiate some of the folks as saying, "Oh, you actually did a little bit of research and saw that we did. We won this award. That's amazing." Right. So it's just become another point of information for us. For people trying to enter the business, and also for customers. So we're really really thankful for it.
I think first of all, thank you guys for the recognition. It's ultimately we're just a family run business, and we're just trying to do good for our customers, right? But it's always, we don't get recognized like that ever, right? So it's very cool that you guys took the time, and I do that for a bunch of businesses because yeah, it helps us out. It helps recognize good work, and trust me, my technicians that are there right now, right there, they're working their butts off right now, and it's very cool that it's thanks to them, thanks to us. It's not just about us; it's about everyone that has touch points with our customers. They leave happy customers every time they leave there, and for us, it's also like we have family that they have our back, you know, our wives, our kids, that we don't necessarily get to go to everything because we have to work and we have to bring money to the house, and it's one of those things that we are getting recognized. It meant a lot to us for sure, and it's helped all those things that Michael said, but it helped within our our circle. It told us that we are on the right track, and we plan on growing, but it's cool to celebrate the small victories, and something like this was never something that we expected to get, but it's very cool, especially when I've always been a huge fan of Yelp, and so is my brother, and so is we always use Yelp for everything, right? So it's just funny how it works that.
I'm so proud of you guys, and I can't wait until it's 6 months, 12 months later, and I can ask where you're at then. So that's amazing. Okay, what's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self? I don't even know if Michael's allowed to do that. He's too young. Jose, what's the advice you would give your younger self?
uh, Patience. Everything will work out as long as if you put the work in, you will get recognized, and things will fall into place. Just be patient.
I love that. Okay, anything that you want to close on? Something you think people should know about pest control, or anything I didn't give you a chance to share?
No, I mean, again, I wanted to echo Jose's sentiment. Really thankful for you to take the time, with us to, do the interview, and really happy to have helped yesterday. And also, wanted to give a shout out to all of our technicians, all of our sales guys. They've thankfully, heeded a lot of Jose's, advice when it comes to how to do things the right way, and they've even taught us some things too. So wanted to give a shout out to them. If they listen, I don't know if they will. They probably hear enough of us throughout the week. But if they happen to listen, really proud of those guys, and hopefully, they're it's the ground floor for them, right? Hopefully they can just continue. Maybe they'll be the service managers and who knows from there. So we're really proud.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to check out the Pest Brothers a little more, you can find the link to their Yelp page in the show notes. And also, if you want to add your business to Yelp or claim your free business user account, go to business.yelp.com. You can also comment below if you have a question or want to share your business. And you can email podcasts@yelp.com if you'd like to get in touch with me or you want to be a guest on a future episode. And don't forget, subscribe to this YouTube channel so you get an alert each time we drop a new episode. We'll see you next time.